Battles and breakthroughs. How God helped Israel take the promised land. Friends, today we continue our journey through the story of Israel after they crossed into the promised land under the leadership of Joshua. The walls of Jericho had already fallen, and the people of Israel had seen something incredible, God fighting on their behalf. But now came the hard part. Taking the land would not happen in one day, one battle, or one miracle. It would take faith, obedience, and learning some difficult lessons along the way. This part of the story reminds us of something important about life with God. Victories are wonderful, but they do not mean the journey's over. In fact, sometimes the next test comes right after the greatest miracle. After Jericho fell, the next city standing in Israel's path was a small place called Ai. Compared to Jericho, Ai looked easy. Jericho had tall walls and a strong defense, but Ai seemed weak, so the leaders of Israel sent spies to check it out. The spies came back confident and said, "We don't need the whole army for this. Just send a few thousand men, and we'll take the city." But something was wrong, something hidden among the people. During the Battle of Jericho, God had given a clear command. The treasures of that city were to belong to the Lord. They were not to be taken for personal gain. Yet one man disobeyed. A man named Achan secretly took some of the treasure and hid it in his tent. No one else knew. It was buried under the ground, hidden from human eyes. But nothing is hidden from God. When the Israelite soldiers attacked Ai, instead of victory, they experienced defeat. The men of Ai chased them down, and several Israelite soldiers were killed. The army returned shaken and confused. Joshua fell on his face before God and cried out, asking why the Lord had allowed this to happen. And God revealed the truth. Sin had entered the camp. Friends, this moment teaches a powerful lesson in simple terms. Sometimes we wonder why things fall apart, why blessings seem blocked, or why progress stops. In this story, the answer was hidden disobedience. God was teaching his people that the promised land was not just about winning battles, it was about living in obedience. Eventually, the truth came out. Achan confessed what he had done, and the sin was dealt with. It was a painful moment for the nation, but it restored their relationship with God. Once the people were right with the Lord again, God told Joshua not to be afraid. He gave Joshua a new strategy to capture Ai. This time, the plan was different. Instead of a direct attack, Joshua set up an ambush. Some soldiers hid behind the city, while another group approached openly. When the men of Ai came out to fight, thinking they would win again, Joshua's army pretended to retreat. The enemy chased them away from the city, leaving Ai unprotected. Then the hidden soldiers rushed in and took the city. Suddenly, the army of Ai realized they had been surrounded. The battle was over quickly. Israel had victory, not by their own strength, but by following God's plan. After this victory, Joshua led the people to a place called Ebal and Mount Gerizim. There they built an altar to the Lord and renewed their commitment to obey his word. Joshua read the law aloud to everyone, men, women, children, and even the foreigners living among them. It was a moment of remembering who they were and why God had brought them into the land. But the story does not end there. Soon another challenge appeared, not through battle, but through deception. A group of people, called the Gibeonites, heard about Israel's victories. They were afraid they would be destroyed like the other cities, so they came up with a clever plan. They dressed in worn-out clothes and carried old bread and cracked wineskins. Then they traveled to Joshua pretending to be travelers from a faraway country. They asked Israel to make a peace treaty with them. The leaders of Israel looked at the evidence. The clothes looked old, the bread looked stale, and the story sounded believable. But the Bible tells us something important. They did not ask the Lord for guidance, so Joshua made the treaty. Only later did Israel discover that the Gibeonites actually lived nearby. They had been tricked, but because Israel had sworn an oath before God, they honored the agreement and did not attack them. This moment reminds us of another simple truth. Even strong leaders can make mistakes when they stop seeking God's wisdom. Despite these challenges, God continued to lead Israel in battle. Soon powerful kings joined together to fight against Joshua and the Israelites. One of the most dramatic battles was when several armies attacked the city of Gibeon. Joshua marched all night to defend them. As the battle raged, the Bible records one of the most astonishing miracles in Scripture. Joshua prayed for more daylight so Israel could finish off the fight. And according to the biblical account, the sun stood still in the sky until the battle was won. Now imagine what that must have looked like. The day stretching longer than any other. Warriors fighting under a sky that refused to darken. The message was clear. The Lord himself was fighting for Israel. After that victory, Joshua continued leading campaigns across the southern and northern parts of the land. Many cities fell, many kings were defeated, and slowly but surely Israel began to take possession of the territory God had promised their ancestors generations earlier. But through all these battles, the most important lesson was not military strength. The real lesson was faith. When the people obeyed God, they found victory. When they ignored him, they faced trouble. Their success did not depend on numbers, weapons, or strategy. It depended on their relationship with the Lord. And that truth still speaks to us today. Life brings battles of many kinds, spiritual struggles, personal challenges, and moments when the road seems uncertain. The story of Joshua reminds us that God's people do not walk into those battles alone. He calls us to live with integrity, to seek his guidance, and to trust his direction even when the path seems unusual. Because just as he did for Israel long ago, God still leads his people from defeat into victory, from confusion into clarity, and from fear into courage. And as we continue this journey through Israel's history, we will see that the Promised Land was only the beginning of a much bigger story. A story about faith, failure, redemption, and the faithful hand of God guiding his people every step of the way. The next episode in Canaan, dividing the promise, the land given to the tribes.